Today's headline that caught my attention isn't a headline at all. It's a sub-headline that jumped out and screamed at me because, one, this is the story that everyone needs to hear about regarding what many consider to be America's most important election, and two, it's from one of history's most respected and objective newscasters who is now a wise and trusted sage. And it appears under the headline that reads, "A Dangerous Double Standard." I'll share who that man is in a few seconds and those words that pierced my brain in just a minute. But first, let me give you some background and a story that I think you'll enjoy. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, Walter Cronkite was the newscaster of my parents' generation. And remember, back in those days, news organizations weren't beholden to advertisers and algorithms. They were objective, non-sensational. They represented multiple sides on complex issues and were trusted. Not like today, not at all.
How many times have you been lied to by the people whose job it is to tell you the truth in the media?
And then in the early 80s, I became mesmerized by current events, and the newscasters of my generation were Peter Jennings, Dan Rather, and Tom Brokaw. And I could land on any of them any night and be informed of the news of the day and feel good about it. Of those three titans of journalism, only Dan Rather remains active in media. And Dan Rather is not only active, but at this stage in life, he doesn't have to wear the reporter hat or start from the center of a story. He can let his opinion flag fly, and often does. A luxury that is well earned after 70 years of service to us. And please stand by because I'll be sharing his most recent piece, a piece that is vital to the Trump-Biden choice. Now, if you happen to be a younger person who's not familiar with this man who belongs on the Mount Rushmore of television journalists, here's a quick clip that shows Rather's unique mix of aggressiveness in covering a story and his non-ego-driven approach to it.
I was watching you at the Democratic National Convention.
It was a crazy time, crazy place. A delegate was being escorted. So I attempted to put the microphone and saying, "Sir, what's going on here?" Security people block it aside. I try to naturally position myself in front so they have to run over me to get to me. The security guy hit me in the solar plexus, practically knocked me out.
Wow.
If you're any good as a reporter, nothing matters but the story. You get so laser beam focused. It's what tennis players call zoned on the story. You're not thinking about television. You're only thinking about the story.
And Dan Rather is no stranger to Donald Trump. Rather was one of the first to expose the bone-spurred, disrespectful misogynist when he began campaigning for his presidency.
His name is on buildings, his face is in magazines and newspapers, but this time he's not talking only about his prowess to make millions of dollars.
I think I'd be a really good president.
Next on the campaign trail, the pre-taping of that Leno show.
And our guest tonight, the next president of the United States, Donald Trump, once caught a sexually transmitted disease from himself. They say a job like president requires a big ego. Now, do you think?
It appeared less high-minded than mean-spirited.
Get even. When somebody screws you, screw them back, but a lot harder, folks.
Afterwards, Trump continued acting less the presidential candidate than politically incorrect.
You know, it's amazing. She looks so conservative. She's got the glasses and everything. The only problem is she's hardly got a dress on. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, he was captured. So
And he flew combat missions with
Does
distinction.
being captured make you a hero? I don't know. I'm not sure.
So what was Dan Rather's quote, the sub-headline that I couldn't wait to share with you? Rather said, "All our energies must go to defeating Trump." There it is, plain and simple from the man who studied countless presidents and world leaders. All our energies must go to defeating Trump, under the headline, "A Dangerous Double Standard." Rather goes on to say, the Republicans have hitched their wagon to a cult leader, and it is time to remind ourselves once again what is at stake in the election. I'll share more of what Dan Rather penned in a moment, but first, let's look at a couple of powerful reactions under the article found at steady.substack.com about the importance of voting. Megan Ross said, "No vote for President Biden is a useless vote. If we all vote for President Biden, he'll easily win. Trump doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell if we all unite to defeat him. Please vote. Thank you." KEM added, "Not useless because there are still downline races, and having Dems control the Congress could be very important. We need to think systematically." And I'm curious, do you agree? please comment below. And I want to give you more of the salient words from Dan Rather in that article, what he said in desperation for his country to do the right thing. You know, I have seen some things in my 7 decades covering American politics. I have never seen anything quite like the wrangling, hand-wringing, and behind-the-scenes gamemanship currently swirling around President Biden. And it isn't over yet. One thing is certain, if Biden stays in the race, every step, every word, every gesture will be parsed, dissected, and magnified. This is the reality, at least for the Democrats. Trump? Not so much. Or really, very little. Trump gets pass after pass. The Republicans have hitched their wagon to a cult leader. They are willing to do just about anything to win back the White House, lie, obliterate the rules, blindly back a convicted felon, a cheater, a sexual assaulter, a Project 2025 promoter, a dictator on day one, and an insurrectionist. The Democrats have, to this point, backed the president, a decent man who has devoted his life to the service of the country. Now the proverbial chips are somewhere near rock bottom. The party doesn't know what to do. Remain loyal to a man who has objectively done a very good job after the debacle that was the Trump administration and risk Trump 2.0? Or nudge Biden out in favor of Vice President Kamala Harris or any number of untested contenders? The finger-pointing and blamesmanship will be epic if Trump wins. Where is this headed? In the confusion, uncertainty, and anxiety of the moment, and amidst all the disappointing media coverage, it is time to remind ourselves again what is at stake in this election.
What's at stake is the very future of the United States of America, and trying to reestablish some normal amount of unity in a country in the situation we're in now is a tremendous challenge for President Biden.